Any of your countrymen actually, might share Donald Trump's admiration for Vladimir Putin.
I'm surprised and I'm deeply disappointed because what they're looking at is a white, authoritarian leader who has murdered journalists and his political enemies, who runs a regime of repression, who makes aggressive moves against neighboring countries, who considers himself an adversary to us, the United States of America. Make no mistake about it, there was something that was personal toward me, in part because as Secretary of State, I had stood up to him and had stated very clearly that we believe in democracy, we believe in the rule of law, and that all annoyed him. We also supported the aspirations of people for greater independence and freedom in places like Ukraine. That certainly annoyed him.
Make no mistake about it, folks. Yeah, that's almost President Hillary Clinton discussing with CBS News' Jane Pauley about Vladimir Putin and his personal vendetta against her, who he cared so much about her not winning that he basically ran a candidate, Donald Trump, years before, or rather months before Trump was even the nominee. So without even getting into the timeline and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how they, establish a narrative and then just run with it. How she was speaking as if it's just an accepted fact. Yeah, Trump and Vladimir on the line with each other all the time. Just how's it going? You're gonna beat Hillary, right? Yeah. Of course, she was discussing her new book, What Happened, a book about her shocking defeat to the Teflon Don. Here, go over a couple other reasons listed, but of course not all. Russians weaponizing information against me with negative stories. WikiLeaks in early October. Facebook was taking money for Russian companies. Yeah, that's right, folks. Even Zuckerberg was in on it. And let's not forget, and I quote here, and let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which is endemic to our society. Yep. American voters are too stupid to vote on their needs and the issues they care about. They just didn't vote for her because she was a woman. She also said she never expected there would be such criticism about her emails. Well, isn't that interesting? Considering that what she did was completely illegal, and if it were anyone else, we would be in prison. Which, even still, I don't think people quite understand what the crime was there. Think of it this way. When you're at work and you're conducting official business, would it be acceptable for you to take a server, a private server, put it in your bathroom and make that your email account? Especially when you work in the public sector where everything you do is subject to FOIA, freedom of information, and that it's all public record. It's owned by you and me. And for her to bypass that and conduct business secretly, and she doesn't understand why people were upset by that. And then here's the best part. She went on to blame also the New York Times, because the New York Times broke the story and reported on it afterwards. She doesn't mention that New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman was seen through WikiLeaks sending emails, getting approval for stories, making sure that it fit the proper narrative for the Clinton team. Not to mention that the New York Times every single day during the election, and really every single day since, has been completely negative to Donald Trump. They pretty much hate him. And then the good one, Fox News, the propaganda channel, because Fox News is the go-to place for switching Democrat voters over. But then there's the one that takes the cake, and I think we have the video of it, of Jim Comey and her thoughts on it. We'll go ahead and cue that up. she goes on to blame FBI Director Comey. Here, take a look and I'll talk.
Were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
I don't know quite what audience he was playing to, other than maybe some, right-wing commentators, right-wing members of Congress, whatever.
The email investigation appeared to be over until late October.
Any reaction to the FBI investigation?
With early voting already underway in some states, traces of Clinton's emails were discovered on a home computer of the estranged husband of her close aide, Huma Abedin. Anthony Weiner was the former congressman who was being investigated in a sexting scandal.
11 days before the election.
11 days before the election, and it raised the specter that somehow the investigation was being It just stopped my momentum. Now remember this too, Jane. At the same time he does that, about a closed investigation, there's an open investigation into the Trump campaign and their connections with Russia. You never hear a word about it.
So, let me get this straight. James Comey, the guy that Trump fired because he was leading this nonsense Russia investigation and leaking information to the New York Times, who's also supposedly against her, was the guy, one of the bigger reasons why she lost. It just doesn't add up, folks. And I'm beginning to wonder, did we not watch the same election? The media had her back the whole way. And now we've even learned that Comey drafted her exoneration speech, letter, whatever, long before he even interviewed her, 4th of July weekend of 2016. And that when Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac in Phoenix, that Comey was instructed to be the guy that made the decision, and that he went along with using Clinton campaign terminology, referring to it as a matter, not an investigation. All evidence points to Comey being on her side. And as far as that reinvestigation, I have my own little theory on that. Do we have that other video, the third video for this? This is Jake Tapper from CNN. Yeah, that's the one. This happened, I think, 5 days before Comey reopened the investigation. We'll go ahead and play that.
In an already volatile presidential race, the latest October surprise will hit millions of Americans in their pocketbooks and wallets. Insurance premiums on Obamacare exchanges will rise an average of 25% on the federal exchange next year, a steep jump from years past. For Republicans, it's confirmation of their opposition to the health care law. So how did this happen? After President Obama's health care plan went...
Okay, so this was 4 or 5 days before Comey reopened the investigation. Is it completely out of the realm of possibility, knowing what we know now, knowing that Comey was in the tank for her the whole way, knowing that he let persons of interest or co-conspirators along with Clinton sit in the room for her interviews despite breaking all procedure, but Cheryl Mills was allowed to be there as her lawyer. Knowing what we know now, knowing that he exonerated her, wrote the letter long before he gave the speech, is it out of the realm of possibility that this last piece about Obamacare, which happened 4 days before the reopening of the investigation, could it be that Comey's reopening of the investigation was nothing more than a distraction? Because I believe, and you can't convince me otherwise, that was the point when Democrats and the Clintons and the Obamas and whoever knew they were in trouble. When that news of Obamacare premiums broke, that swayed the election. especially in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, places where Democrats had to win and places where they knew Donald Trump was gaining momentum. So what do? You create a new reason for losing. Because if that had been the official narrative, Obamacare, if that had been the official narrative of why Trump won, think of the winds that would have been at his back coming in for inauguration to immediately repeal it. But instead, we get the reopening of the investigation, Comey becomes a scapegoat, and then we get this Russian stuff, the Russian dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier that was paid for by the DNC, turned over to the FBI, which was further funded by the FBI, and that became the way to take down Trump. Forget Obamacare. We got a criminal in the White House, or at least so they wanted us to think. So all I'm saying, folks, is don't fall for the tricks. Democrats are experts at rewriting history. Like I went over the list earlier of all the things they've survived because they've been able to rewrite it. Just look at the Confederate statues. Do you really think they care about taking them down? No, they want to take them down because they want to get rid of Democrat history. They want to get rid of their own history. They want to rewrite history. They want to take the 2016 election and in 50 years, 100 years, when kids write research papers about this election, they're going to use Hillary Clinton's memoir as a primary source and be able to say, oh, look, Bernie Sanders, he started the crooked Hillary thing. Russians weaponized information, WikiLeaks, Facebook even. Don't be fooled by it. There's always an agenda, there's always a narrative, there's always an angle. And that's all this book is. It's a way to restate. She even said in the book that, or it might have even been in the interview, that Republicans have a way of saying something enough times to where people eventually believe it. She does the same thing. She's actually the one that does it. We'll be right back.